How good is the autofocus on the Sony A7C when paired with a Metabones adapter that allows you to use Sony not Sony EF, the Canon EF glass or EF-Mount lenses when you put the Metabones into advanced mode? Hey folks, welcome. My name is Belal Khan, marketer by profession, media by passion, and this channel is all about helping you unleash your creative and make your ideas real using digital media. And a big part about that is understanding the ins and outs of whatever gear that you have at your disposal and what you can do with it. So I've rented the Sony A7C, and one of the things that I was curious about and wanted to know is how well does it function when you adapt EF lenses to it, especially using an adapter such as the Metabones. Now, in a previous video, I was testing out the gyro stabilization using Metabones as well as the MC11 adapter and whether or not it works. In summary, yes, it works. If you want to check out the full details, I'll link it up here. I got a comment on that video by Kirill Kanatanasov. He basically pointed out that, and I didn't know this, that you can switch using an app on the Metabones. This is Metabones Mark IV, by the way, for E-Mount to EF-Mount lenses. And what this allows you to do is when you switch to advanced mode, it basically unlocks autofocus, especially autofocus continuous in video mode. So what I want to do in this video is to see how well the lenses that I have 6 EF lenses, electronic, that autofocus. And we're just gonna go through them one by one, do a basic walking test, in and out test to see how well the autofocus works. So the first lens that I wanna start off with, I think it might be fair for us to go from wide angle, go all the way down wide angle starting at 16 millimeters, and we'll go work our way all the way to 50 millimeters. And I'm gonna be switching between Super 35 mode if it's a crop sensor lens. Oh, well, actually I'll start in full frame and then go into Super 35 mode and see how well it works. So let's get started. Okay, so here we are. This is 16 millimeter full frame mode, the Tokina 11:16, and this is basically the autofocusing test, moving in, moving out. I don't think I need to move too far back out, but let me actually just go ahead and tilt this thing a little bit down, so this way when I'm out of the frame, it still has me in the frame. So this is me walking backwards, full long shot, walking in. How well is it keeping? I can see the box around my face, but you guys let me know in the comments below on the Tokina 11:16 in full frame mode whether or not this thing is functioning well or not. Again, we're on the Metabones Mark IV in advanced mode. Now, there is a caveat in this. Now, when I put it into advanced mode and I go to full frame, the camera knows whether or not I'm on a full frame crop sensor camera, regardless of whether or not I put it into it. I put it into full frame or not. So because it knows this is a crop sensor lens that's being displayed at full frame, for whatever reason, the gyro stabilization is not going to be functional using Catalyst Browse or it will be, but you gotta crop in really, really deep. However, if you switch it to the Super 35 mode, which I'm gonna do right now. So now we're in Super 35 mode. Now, you might not see much of a difference in terms of the field of view because I just zoomed it out to 11 millimeters. So this would be 16, this is 11. So if I, again, walk back, and you guys tell me, do you notice a difference when I go 16 millimeter full frame versus 11 millimeter crop sensor? Because 11 millimeter crop sensor is the field of view of just over 16, maybe 16 and a half millimeter. Still gives you those spaghetti arms. You still get that Canadian focal length. You can still get rid of that COVID weight that you put on. But the thing is, in terms of the field of view, does it look much different? And I'll kind of like maybe here, I'm gonna split it and you guys tell me, do you see a difference in terms of the field of view and the distortion between 16 millimeter, and also pay attention to the autofocus. Do you notice a difference in terms of whether or not, if does it keep track? Now, on the camera, I notice that there is the box on my eye or my face, depending on where I'm at. Same thing here. Now, if I just go ahead and crop that into 16 millimeters, and this is more in crop sensor mode, is actually equivalent to like a 24 millimeter if you add the 1.5x crop in terms of field of view. Is it? I mean, I still see the box in the eye tracking. It seems to be doing it rather well. One of the cool things is on the Metabones website, if you go to download the app, it'll tell you all of the different lenses in the EF model that this is compatible with. And the Tokina 11-16 is one of those lenses that they've tested. And they also have a list of lenses that are tested by the community of users who use this lens. So this is 11-16 Super 35 mode. Now let's move on to my next lens, which is the Sigma 18-35. So this is the Sigma 18-35, just past 24 millimeters. Actually, let me zoom in just a little bit more, crop out the vignette. It's probably like 28 millimeters right here. And here we are in full frame mode, Sigma 18-35, using the Metabones Mark IV, and the autofocus. I'm stopped all the way down to f1.8, 1/50 shutter. I had to drop the ISO from 1600 down to 640 because this is a significantly faster lens. We were at f2.8 on that. Now we're on f1.8, which is approximately, I would say, maybe 3 or 4 times more light gathering ability that this lens has, more than a 2.8 Tokina 11-16. Now, one of the things though, just to keep in mind, so one of the challenges that I was discovering when using the MC11 adapter, which a lot of these Sigma art lenses are designed for, when you use a Sigma MC11 or the Metabones in advanced mode, it communicates to the camera exactly whether or not it's a crop sensor or a full frame lens. Although you can zoom in from like 28 to 35 and you get full frame coverage with a little bit of vignetting, but if you zoom out, obviously you're gonna get the full vignetting of 18 millimeters. But the camera knows that this is a crop sensor camera. And so when it knows that, you go into gyro stabilization mode. In full frame mode, it's gonna do a very poor job of gyro stabilization. However, you take this Metabones that I'm on right now and you switch it back using the app to green mode. It's in advanced mode right now. You switch it back to green mode and then you will be able to stabilize the full frame footage. However, there is a cost. You're gonna have to sacrifice this autofocusing capability. The autofocusing does not work in green mode with a lot of these EF lenses. However, on the MC11, it would. So it's just a question of what is it that you want. But then again, you could always use the lenses for their intended purposes. In this case, let's go ahead and switch over to Super 35 mode. Boom, just like that, we're in Super 35 mode. Now, with the Metabones, you will get the autofocusing and you will also get the crop sensor stabilization ability. So this essentially, in crop sensor mode with advanced mode, essentially kind of functions like the MC11. And you tell me, to me, I think it's working pretty well. Move in, move close, move away. It's tracking me just fine. Excellent option for a solo creator. Move out of the frame, probably focus on the background. Move back into the frame, focuses back on me. And even if I zoom in all the way to 35 mil, now obviously I have to move back a little bit. So, but it's still, I see the box on my head, right? As I move a little bit closer, right? It tracks me, move a little bit back. It seems to be tracking me just fine, right? Move out of the frame. And then after that, move right back into the frame and boom, it gets me just, honestly, I think this is pretty good. Now, I might change my mind when I look at the footage, and if I do, I'll cut right in. But you tell me, leave me a comment below, letting me know whether or not the autofocusing ability, does it look good, right? I think it does. Granted, you've got the appropriate adapters. So let's now go ahead and switch over to my next lens, which is an EF-S lens. It is the 17-55 image stabilized. And here we are on the 17-55 Canon EF-S lens. This is optically a wonderful lens I've used on my Canon. The only issue that I have is if you're going to be manually focusing, and initially got this lens for my GH5 because of the image stabilization, the focal length range, but focusing on this thing manually, I don't like it. It gives me, because of the way that the plastic is rubbing on the plastic, it's just very, gives me nails on a chalkboard kind of feeling. But now this lens on a full frame absolutely will not work. So see that? That's what happens. Now, if you wanted, you can go ahead and use clear image zoom. So while this is recording, actually I can't use clear image zoom because Canon is telling me that this, not Canon, the Sony is going to tell me that this lens is not compatible with clear image zoom. So regardless of what focal length you're at, on full frame, the EF-S will always give you some sort of vignetting. So let's go ahead and switch this over to Super 35 mode. And here we are, Super 35 mode, 17mm, approximately 25, 26, maybe 28 millimeter field of view. How well is it tracking me? I see the box around my eye. If I were to move back, it seems to be gathering me. Let's say I step out of frame and then probably focuses back on the background, come back into frame, and it finds me just fine. Now, one of the perks of using this lens is, let's say you want to keep the shutter speed low, you want to keep the ISO settings low, you're indoors, you got lens IS on. And so if you were to, let's say, run around with this lens, let's see how well this thing is focusing. I'm going to turn IS on, right? And then take this off the tripod. And as I take this off the tripod, how well got the lens stabilization going, right? Is it focusing well, right? Bring this thing close, pull it away far, and I mean, overall, I got the steady shot on the body, but I don't think it's going to make much of a difference on a lens such as this. Now, if we were to say flip this around and I focus on something in the distance, move it in all the way, right? And I bring it up like this, right? Focus far away. And there's a little bit of a hunting, right? But once it finds this thing, it comes back, right? Let's bring it over here. And the reason I'm doing that, I haven't done this with any of the other lenses because this is image stabilization. So if you're walking around with it, vlogging with it, it's a relatively light lens. So you may even want to kind of move in, move out. Again, 17mm EF-S, 17-55. What do you think? How do you feel it's performing? Honestly, out of my personal feedback regarding this lens, out of all of the other lenses, this is probably the second worst in terms of ability, although on the Metabones website it says that this lens is compatible and it works. It's acceptable, works better than the dysfunction that it has on the GH5, but it does not compare to how well it functions on, say, Canon EOS M6 Mark II or any of the Canon lenses or Canon cameras. So now let's go ahead and swap this out and let's jump onto a 24mm EF-S f2.8. Hey guys, so now we are on the 24mm EF-S f2.8 lens in full frame mode. As you'll notice, there is quite a bit of vignetting because this is a crop sensor lens. However, one of the cool features within the Sony camera is a clear image zoom. So if we go ahead and zoom this into, say, 1.2x, right, which essentially becomes now 24, it becomes maybe a 28mm. Alexa, 24 times 1.2.
24 times 1.2 is 28.8.
So almost 29mm field of view with a slight vignette at 1.2x. So it's almost a full frame lens. It's a pancake lens, so it's very portable. Autofocus tends to be performing adequately. Moving myself forward and back, and yeah, I think this is a very good capable lens. Now let's go ahead and switch this over to Super 35 mode. And here we are, Super 35 mode, 1.5x crop on the on this lens, the 24mm f2.8. which brings us to approximately a just over 35 millimeter field of view. Now, again, one of the things that was just always, some of these lenses are good. Actually, this is it still had clear image zoom on. So clear image zoom is off. This is the full 1.5x, so this is approximately 35 millimeter field of view. But again, you can always turn on clear image zoom and give yourself an even greater field of view. Boom, just like that. And how well does it track? It tracks me just fine. So. And this lens right here is a very affordable lens, about $100. So you get yourself a Metabones plus the lens, maybe paying total $500, but then you give yourself access to all of these very affordable lenses. Or if you have these affordable lenses and you want to move into a Sony system, which I myself am considering, then this works. So let's go ahead and try our next lens, the nifty 50 Canon f1.8. And here we are, Canon 50mm f1.8. Now, when I was testing this before, actually, let me go ahead and reduce the ISO settings on this. Now, as you'll notice, I'm arm's length away, but it's still kind of struggling with finding me. So let's bring this down to ISO 640, and here we go. Now, judging by the camera's ability, is it focusing? I mean, just over arm's length away, and it struggles a little bit. Now, the recommended lens was the f1.2. I don't have that one. Actually, 640-10, that seems a little, let's go up to 1000. Right, boom, there we go. And this is right now full frame mode. If I pop out of the screen, come back in, pop out the other way, right, come back in, right, move back. How well does it track me? Move forward again. Again, we're on the Metabones Mark IV Sony E-Mount to F-mount. You know, if I am just, I would say, 1.5 of an arm's length away, it seems to track me just fine. However, if I try to get up close, right, that's where it tends to struggle a little bit. And I'm pretty sure the minimum focus distance of this lens, there we go, it's kind of sort of finding me. There we go, yeah, there we go. It took a little bit, not the best in terms of autofocusing with this lens, but eventually it does it. Now, let's try this out in Super 35 mode. And boom, here we are, Super 35 mode, and this is gonna be super up close. Now, this is essentially the field of view of like maybe 75 millimeters at f1 point. There we go, drop my lens cap. So again, move back, right? Move as far back as I can, pop out of the frame, making my way closer to the camera, and then after that, I jump right into the frame. Does it find me? It does find me, but it is slow. It is slow. So this is probably, the 50mm f1.8 is probably the worst performing lens in terms of the autofocus in relation to all the other cameras, all the other lenses that are autofocus capable. So let's jump to my conclusions. All right, so here we go, back on the Sigma 1835, using the MC11 so that I could do this. And one thing that you'll notice is that the responsiveness of autofocus on a Sigma lens with the MC11 is significantly superior to using the Metabones. However, the Metabones autofocus, to me, honestly, the real value in using the Metabones is simply on this one lens, which is the Tokina 11-16. I think this is, yeah, there we go. The Tokina 11-16. This is an ultra wide angle lens. It's a great lens, and basically getting autofocus enabled on this while also maintaining gyro stabilization is going to be clutch. So yeah, that's basically my conclusion. Again, if you want to check out the gyro stabilization test of the video, it should be in the link above somewhere. I'll also include it on the box down here. But overall, is this worth it? Well, you tell me, do you have EF lenses that you'd like to use with the Sony Alpha system, specifically in this case, Sony A7C? One of the things I'm loving about the Sony A7C right now, in the 2 weeks that I'm renting it, is the fact that a lot of the support that, or any questions that might have on a general level, the A7 III, the answers to the A7 III apply very much to the A7C, whether it be settings for S-Log or hybrid log gamma, picture profiles, menu settings, all of that. If there's any questions, the answers to the A7 III kind of apply. So for me, the wonderful thing about it is that the portability of the A7C, so far I'm loving it, and the fact that it performs well in terms of autofocus if you have Sigma lenses, and it's got the flip out screen. So that's it, guys. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below, and I'll see you soon.